everybody, how's it going? Today, let's take a detailed look at the all-new 2014 Maserati Ghibli S Q4. And this is going to be a detailed, in-depth review of the Ghibli. We'll start it up, show the engine, get an exhaust clipping over the performance data, as well as show you a bunch of the unique aspects of the interior, as well as exterior. And before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to extend a special shout out and big thanks to Foreign Cars Italia, located in Charlotte, North Carolina, for allowing me to come out and film the all-new 2014 Maserati Ghibli S Q4. And so, without further ado, let's go and start her up, let her run. As you can see, the Ghibli does come standard with remote start. Now the Ghibli does come standard with a remote smart key access system, so all you have to do is just keep the key fob in your pocket and locate the buttons and touch sensors on both the driver and passenger side door handle. To lock, just tap the little chrome button. One beep indicates locking, then after waiting a second, just grab the handle and it automatically unlocks the vehicle. The exterior color is known as Bianco, with a full premium narrow leather interior. And along with that smart key system, there's also a remote push-button ignition located to the left of the steering column. To start, all you have to do is just put your foot on the brake and hit the button to go. Now this Ghibli, just like the Quattroporte, features a dual-mode exhaust system with a bypass valve in the exhaust pipes that are closed in standard mode for a quieter tone, but are fully open when you put the vehicle in sport mode, which allows a much more menacing sound. We'll go a little bit more in depth later in the video, but first in standard mode. You'll also notice that the throttle is a lot more responsive in sport mode. Once you switch it over, you can automatically hear those bypass valves open and the much more pronounced sound. The new Ghibli features servo-assisted hydraulic speed proportional rack and pinion power steering in this beautifully thick hand-stitched leather-wrapped steering wheel with 3-spoke design, twin Y-spoke down below, as well as subtle chrome around the airbag cover, the spokes, and the multifunction controls, not to mention heavy grips up top. And following along the lines of the new Quattroporte, the Ghibli also features a new ZF 8-speed electronically controlled automatic gearbox, fed to this unique controller in the center console. To activate, just hit the unlock button on the back, pull it down to drive. Without hitting the unlock button, if you tap it up once, it'll put it in manual mode, where you can shift it down below, via the plus or minus button, or via the aluminum paddle shifters mounted on the back of the steering wheel. with a fantastic feel and great placement for your hands. While in drive, if you hit unlock and go up once, it puts it into neutral. Once again for reverse. And once you're in reverse, your backup camera automatically appears on your 8.4-inch touchscreen LCD display with guidance lines. And then for park, push it all the way towards the top. All nicely accented in leather and satin aluminum trim amongst an aluminum housing. Now the ZF Automatic has 5 different driving modes activated via the buttons to the left-hand side of the gear selector. They're Auto Normal, Auto Sport, Manual Normal, Manual Sport, and ICE, or Increased Control and Efficiency, or ICE, which I'll refer to later in the video. I'll talk about these in great detail during the test drive portion, but right above that is your traction control, as well as the Sport button to activate the Skyhook adaptive damper settings. There's also an electronic parking brake. Just pull up to activate, and put your foot on the brake and pull it up again to deactivate. And so we're going to flip on the automatic projector headlamps, rear fog lamps, as well as the hazards. Naturally, all 4 windows are fully automatic. And we're going to check out the exterior, shall we? The interior of the vehicle will also chime, letting you know it's lost detection of the proximity key fob. Maserati has always been a niche market nameplate. Now, nearly 100 years since the inception of the company, parent company Fiat, which also owns Ferrari, has set eyes on turning one of the most unique, understated marks of the Italian fleet into a globally competitive, higher volume brand that not only retains the company's soul and spirit, but opens the doors to thousands of new potential customers who may have never considered a Maserati as a viable alternative to the steep European competition. In doing so, Maserati has started off well for 2014 with the introduction of an all-new Quattroporte, which is the brand's flagship sedan. It takes advantage of Fiat's new partnership with Chrysler Group. While a great start, the real key to future success is the revitalization of the famed Ghibli nameplate for 2014. The original Ghibli for 1967 was a sleek sports coupe and spider roadster designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro and produced for 7 years with over 1,000 units made. It then reappeared for 1992 for following 5 years as a 2-door. Now for 2014, the first thing you notice is the newest generation Ghibli relates little to its predecessors as far as style is concerned. It's larger and has 2 extra doors, but don't let that fool you. Underneath is a properly designed sports sedan with Maserati's first ever all-wheel drive system dubbed Q4. It also shares a Ferrari-built twin-turbo V6 also seen in the standard Quattroporte. The Ghibli represents a large leap for Maserati as parent company Fiat works to expand the brand further into the luxury segment with an end goal of producing 50,000 cars a year by 2015. A big goal since the company as a whole sold around 6,100 cars in 2012. That's an 8-fold increase in production over roughly 3 years. That number also includes the current generation Gran Turismo models as well as the newest Quattroporte and a future SUV soon to be released. The Ghibli is estimated to make up about half of those sales. In fact, sales last year were already up 76% with almost 3/4 of the sales being for all-wheel drive cars, and that's just after a few months of the vehicle's releases. The all-new Ghibli is actually set to compete mainly with the 4-door coupe category such as the Mercedes CLS, Audi A7, BMW 6 Series Grand Coupe, and Porsche's Panamera. It can also be thought to be in line with other executive sedans like the Mercedes E-Class and BMW 5 Series and other similar models. In comparison, the Ghibli is about 1.2 inches longer than a CLS, with a 5-inch increase in wheelbase yielding more interior room. For those of you who have seen my previous in-depth review of the 2014 Quattroporte, one of the first things you'll notice about the Ghibli is a similar design language, creating a more uniform brand identity. The Ghibli, however, is more dynamic with sleeker headlamps, dynamic wheel arches, and a raked arch as if it's ready to pounce. The grille is even more rectangular than the traditional oval. Keeping this in mind, it probably won't come as a surprise that the car is based heavily on its larger sibling in many ways, while tightening the packages for a more engaged, enthusiastic driving experience. All in all, the Ghibli shares between 45 and 50% of its parts with the Quattroporte, including its brakes, steering, suspension, various interior elements, and electronics. Its wheelbase is shorter by nearly 7 inches, with around a foot less in overall length. The car shares approximately 10% of parts with other makes as well, in some ways to cut costs in reaching their production goal, in others to make the car much more livable than previous generation Maseratis could have ever hoped for. Like the Quattroporte, the Ghibli also benefits by design collaboration from in-house engineers to Ferrari and even Chrysler Group, which Fiat partnered with back in 2009. Of course, more details to follow during the interior portion. While the chassis is a modified version of the Quattroporte, it represents the next generation E-segment platform that will take the basis on future models from Alfa Romeo, the Maserati Gran Turismo, in addition to Chrysler products like the 300 and Charger. As you would expect this day and age are avid movements to keep weight down and strength up. The Ghibli's mostly steel chassis does feature aluminum sprinkled in key areas, including a cast aluminum front clip with reinforcing cross strut for weight saving and increased rigidity. Aluminum also makes up many of the body panels, including the hood and the doors. And if that's not enough, the dashboard frame is actually cast magnesium. In the North American market, the Ghibli will only feature 2 out of the 3 worldwide engine choices, consisting of 2 Ferrari-built twin-turbocharged 3-liter V6s that produce 345 horsepower in base cars and 404 horsepower with the S cars. The S variant is the same power plant found in the base Quattroporte and will only be available with the Q4 all-wheel drive system. Maserati's first diesel option also appears for the Ghibli, but it'll only be available in Europe. Engineers also take a lot of pride with the Q4 system for its versatility, while still preserving an enthusiastic driving experience with torque vectoring capabilities. After all, it only adds a meek 132 pounds to the vehicle's overall curb weight. The system works automatically, dispersing torque to the front wheels on demand when the situation presents itself. It makes these determinations based on steering angle, vehicle speed, throttle position, and yaw motion. It's primarily rear-wheel biased, but if needed, the car can transfer up to half of the available torque to the front in less than 150 milliseconds or less than 1 wheel turn. Once the car is at speeds greater than 81 miles an hour, the front wheels will no longer be powered, as the rear wheels are developing enough torque for all intents and purposes. Q4 works by a single power transfer unit that sits at the rear of the transmission. A wet multi-plate clutch is housed inside the mechanical limited slip differential and controlled electronically by a servo actuator. The clutch pack is able to provide 35% locking and acceleration and 45% during deceleration. Its function is to provide a proportion of available torque and send it to a collection of 3 gears that turns a shaft which runs along the right side of the transmission and up to the front open differential. The differential is bolted to the engine's aluminum oil sump pump. At this point, there are 2 half shafts, one that passes through the sump to drive the front left wheel, while the other shaft is exposed and propels the right front wheel. Because of the low, far back position of the engine, this design was necessary to allow easy clearance and integration of all components. The standard Ghibli features 18-inch alloy wheels, but this SQ4 has a set of optional 19-inch asymmetric alloys wrapped in Pirelli P0 tires measuring 245/45 in front and 275/40 in the rear. 20 and 21-inch wheels are also available. Brakes on the SQ4 are also larger than rear-wheel drive Ghibli's, consisting of cross-drilled ventilated rotors with optional color-contrasting Brembo calipers. The discs measure a large 14.2 inches in front with 6-piston calipers and 13.8 inches in the rear with 4-piston calipers. These bring the SQ4 to a stop from 60 miles an hour in approximately 118 feet. As far as the fully independent suspension, it features a signature all-aluminum double wishbone design up front and a 5-link setup in the back. Standard cars come as a fixed damping rate, while Skyhook works to reduce lateral and longitudinal load transfers and minimize body roll without changing ride height. Rear-wheel drive Ghiblis also feature perfect weight distribution, while Q4 cars distribute 51% in front and 49% in the rear. This is thanks to mounting the engine as far back and low as possible, hint front midship layout. This helps the car achieve upwards of 1 G in lateral acceleration over the skid pad. Overall length is 195.7 inches with a width of 76.6 inches and a height of 57.5 inches. Total curb weight, depending on how equipped, is around 4,000 pounds. So let's go and pop the hood. The most impressive aspect of the Ghibli are its engine choices. This SQ4 features an all-new direct-injected 3-liter twin-turbo V6 with a separate intercooler for each turbo. It features all-aluminum construction, double overhead camshafts, 4 valves per cylinder, and dual variable valve timing. It was built by Ferrari, like I mentioned earlier, and produces a very impressive 404 horsepower at 5,500 RPM, and 406 pound-feet of torque as low as 1,750 RPM while in sport mode. The standard Ghibli's nearly identical engine produces 345 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and 369 pound-feet of torque, also at 1750 RPM. The biggest difference between the two is that the S features higher performance camshafts, in addition to larger injectors, more turbo boost, and retuned engine management software. 0 to 60 times are a claimed 4.7 seconds with top speed of 177 miles an hour. The horizontally mounted twin-scroll turbos allow for virtually zero turbo lag for instant performance when needed. As far as fuel economy, with a 21-gallon tank on required premium fuel, expect to see somewhere around 18 city and 21 on the highway. The interior of the Ghibli is a welcomed improvement in ergonomics, technology, and functionality compared to Maseratis of the past. Keeping with the coupe styling, it also features frameless windows on each door. Overall, the interior is definitely a big departure from past models. It's quite contemporary, and while different, shares some common elements with the new Quattroporte. Build quality is excellent as you would expect and features premium Poltrona faux leather that can be added to the dash and doors and other interior touchpoints. Tasteful touches of chrome accent the vents, control, and dash, as does the satin aluminum. The wood is also new and is customizable. You can even opt for open-pore wood for a more contemporary look. For a sportier touch, carbon fiber can be had rather than the wood. Other than that, there's a multitude of options and colors that can make each car stand out, including bespoke options. The seats feature unique stitch patterns that can be had with perforated surfaces in the middle for heating and cooling in order to keep the seats ventilated. Rear seats can also be had with heat. They're quite comfortable with plenty of padding and lateral support, all powered with 4-way power lumbar, adjustable seatbelts, and headrests with side curtain and torso airbags. Much of the tech and electronics are Chrysler Group sourced, as I touched on earlier, of course tailored for Maserati. It's pretty easy to spot if you've ever driven a new Charger, 300, and any of the other updated models debuting after 2011, but for those having experience with previous Maserati models, it's a welcome change in refinement, ease of use, and it created a cleaner, simpler interior styling. Down in the lower portion of the dash is a storage pocket as well as a standard driver knee airbag. All of your interior lighting and brightness controls, and your full leather-wrapped dash with the accent stitching. Full power tilt telescoping steering wheel, aluminum sport pedals, as well as an optional Alcantara headliner with sunroof. So let's go ahead and see how she sounds. First, in the standard mode. Now, switching over to sport mode. And like I said, you can instantly hear the difference as the exhaust bypass valve opens. The throttle is also a lot more responsive. we're going to shut her up. Nice solid doors. So let's go ahead and take a quick test drive, see what the Ghibli's all about. Sorry I didn't bring my GoPro camera today, but I went ahead and set up my main camera in between the front seats so you can get a little bit more of a bird's eye perspective. Now, the Maserati Ghibli has 5 different driving modes that you can put the transmission into. I told you earlier that there's a sport mode, there's a manual mode, increased control and efficiency, as well as a manual mode. Well, that just sounds like 3 different options, but there's actually 2 different sub-options between manual as well as sport mode. Now, while the vehicle's in just regular automatic mode, you can put it into sport mode, and what that does is it raises the shift points as well as increasing the shifting time. Now, if you put it in manual mode and not sport mode, that gives you the ability to, well, shift it manually via the paddles or the gear selector down below. Now, if you hit manual and sport, which is what I'm currently in at the moment, it'll increase the shifting time and all of that extra benefit. So it's like the maximum performance, it gives you the most control, and the vehicle will actually let itself go all the way to redline without intervention. The only intervention that it will give as far as automated shifting for you is if the RPMs drop down too low, necessarily, that the vehicle could risk stalling out like a manual transmission car would. Now let's go ahead and get a few acceleration shots in manual and sport mode. Shifts are essentially lightning quick. Fantastic response, especially in sport mode. When that exhaust baffle opens up, it just lets in that beautiful symphony of signature Maserati sound. Slow down again. The throttle blips upon downshifts are also a really neat thing to hear. What a beautifully executed vehicle. The sound is just incredible. But what's nice about the Ghibli is they took a small mid-size sedan and really perform and make it feel like a Maserati should. I mean, the transmission shifts spot on. The ride is soft, but it's not too soft. I mean, it's got enough of a sport tune feeling to where it can definitely take a corner and hold its own. It feels very refined going down the road. There's no creaks or rattles or anything like that throughout the interior. And overall, it's quiet. I mean, there's a good amount of sound deadening in here that really shuts off some of the exterior noise. But I really, really love the fact that you could still hear that awesome exhaust note from the back. Now, another thing about the way they organize the turbos is they've pretty much eliminated any sort of turbo lag. So when you're getting up on it and getting the extra power into the upper bands, especially in the lower RPMs, I mean, it's just instantaneous power. Now, to touch on a little bit more on what the increased control and efficiency mode is, like I said a second ago, it's basically the most docile form of the vehicle. So when you put it in it, right now, like I said, I was in manual and sport mode simultaneously. ICE mode, for short, takes all of that away, puts it in full auto mode, closes the exhaust flap in the back, and makes it a more quiet, more smoother shifting, basically just a more relaxed ride. thing you'll notice, like I mentioned earlier, the vehicle will only intervene the shifts in manual and sport mode when the RPMs drop too low, that the vehicle loses too much power, like a manual transmission. So with the new ZF 8-speed automatic, you can think of 7th and 8th gear as pretty much two overdrive gears. They're really for better fuel economy. You're not going to get amazing acceleration or anything like that by using those upper gears. But pretty much every manufacturer these days are going to the ZF just because it has such an impactful increase on fuel economy. So what I'll show now is I'm going to put it into 7th and 8th gear and then try to accelerate. Fifth gear, 6th, 7th, 8th. Now I'm going to slow down. Just shifted to 7th, now to 6, now to 5. And now I have full control over it again now that the RPMs are up. Now another thing about 7th and 8th gears, like I said earlier, they're basically overdrive gears for fuel economy. So if you're just cruising down the road, and we'll just put it in 8th gear right now. So we're hovering around at probably 1100 RPM or so. If we try to bury the pedal and overtake this Cadillac over here, the power is basically not there. Just like old days back when 5th and 6th gears were considered overdrives before now more performance-oriented models came out. So if you're going to make any sort of passing maneuvers or any overtakes on the highway or anything like that, just take it out of 8th gear, maybe to 5th or even 4th. And then you're off. But definitely while it's in increased control and efficiency mode or ICE mode, it definitely gets more docile. It's more of a luxury ride, and it's quiet, so you're not going to hear a loud exhaust all the time or anything like that unless you want it, which is nice because it gives a little bit of flexibility, especially if multiple people are going to be driving it. Obviously, people's tastes differ from one another greatly. And one of the things you'll notice also when it's in standard mode and especially ICE mode, the transmission shift times are not near as quick as it will be in sport and or manual sport mode, or sport automatic. Try not to give it a little confusing, but like right now when I accelerate a little bit, it's a little slower to take off. But if we put it in sport mode, slow down again and go to take off, the gear changes are much more rapid and it really takes off with a lot more assertiveness than in ICE mode. So right before we get to our destination, I'll leave it in standard mode so you can hear how it sounds and shifts. Another really great thing, like I touched on earlier, the new Maseratis, including the Quattroporte and the Ghibli, are under the parent company of Fiat, which also owns Ferrari. Now, Fiat took majority stakeholdership in Chrysler Group recently, and I know they did like the merger thing back in 2009, but what they've essentially been able to do is merge technology between all the different brands. So it sounds funny to think of it, but you have the same technology in a Dodge Charger, new Dodge Charger, or a Chrysler 300 than you do in this car. So me, I have a 2012 Charger RT. As soon as I got into this car, as soon as I got into the Quattroporte, it was instantly familiar, and I pretty much knew how to use everything in this car already. Now, some of the purists out there might think, "Oh my gosh, they're sharing parts with Chrysler Group. This is a travesty." Oh no, but you got to think of the old technology in some of the Maserati cars, especially, and they still have some in the Gran Turismo. It's outdated. It was outdated years ago. Now, with all the better functionality and user interfaces and the easy-to-use ergonomics and everything is much simpler, especially with the Uconnect system. There's not a vast array of mysterious buttons all over the dash or anything like that to kind of fiddle with, and especially makes it safer driving down the road. I had no idea what to expect, and I was really impressed with the way they executed and the direction they took with this. It could be a mild-mannered sedan or a very fun performance car. The standard Ghibli features an 8-speaker audio system, while you can also opt for a 10-speaker 600-watt system for a bit more punch. At the top of the range is the high-performance Bowers & Wilkins 15-speaker 16-channel system with 1280 watts and Harman Quantum Logic surround sound. Now that Fiat has a pretty strong stake in Chrysler Group, you would expect there to be some parts sharing, and there is with these newest models like I touched on earlier. In my opinion, it only serves to better the brand, especially when taking volume into consideration and ease of use with a wide variety of clients. This is by far true with the navigation multimedia system. Replacing the antiquated systems of yesteryear is the all-new 8.4-inch Maserati Touch Control, a rebranded version of the newest Uconnect system that features built-in Garmin navigation, satellite radio, and much more. You can essentially control the entire vehicle from the system, enhancing user functionality without cluttering the dash with unnecessary buttons. Overall, it's a wonderful sound and audio system. Side curtain airbags, grip handles, as well as Alcantara lined visors. Little storage strap, the rear view mirror is auto dimming. Whereas in the top stack you have your microphones for your hands-free Bluetooth telephone, black accenting, as well as chrome trim circling around, 3-position garage home link, and controls for your interior illumination as well as reading lamps. Up top here is the controls for your fully automatic sunroof. Just press and hold for a second, and it'll slide back, popping up a little wind deflector. Now, as far as the Uconnect system, like I said, it's really quite simple to use. All of your main system functions are located down below in easy-to-see buttons. For Maserati, the system has a nice blue tone to it, just like it does in the Quattroporte. But in the media screen, which we're in right now, you can control your different media options. If you hit source, you can see what they are, so iPod, auxiliary integration, USB input, SD card, and hands-free Bluetooth streaming of audio. If you hit browse, you can go between your different media option, to go between different playlists, songs, artists, basically controlling your iPod's functionality from the screen itself. So you can fast forward between tracks, hit pause, repeat. That's what will shuffle the songs. The icons off to the far right, you can turn on and off, so right now it'll display which playlist or CD, artist, song information. Hitting tracks allow you to easily see what's in the playlist you're currently in, song and artist information, and you can also dual yield your map with your radio or song information located to the left there. Now if we hit radio, you have similar functionality, but this has a little bit more to it. You can also dual yield your map or have the radio, artist, song information as well as the genre. Go in between AM and FM as well as standard satellite radio. All of your preset stations will be located up top. You can browse the available stations or satellite radio stations and manually tune. Just like in the media screen, your audio adjustments are located to the bottom right hand side there, balance and fade, equalizer adjustments, speed compensated volume, and music info cleanup with Grace Note, so you can tag album covers and things of that nature. Continuing on, the controls allow you to turn your screen off if you didn't want it glaring at you at night, as well as activating your 2-stage heated seats for both the driver and passenger. As far as climate control, it can be all controlled from here or via the manual controls down below, which I'll show in just a second. So max AC, recycling, one-touch automatic, front and rear defrost, different zones in the middle. Hit this button to bring up the controls once again for your heated seats, fan speed, as well as temperature adjustment. Independent for both sides. Very quick, no lag between the different menus. As far as the navigation, this is the updated Garmin system found in all of the new Uconnect products. Your destination input, also very simple and easy to read. Viewing your map with real-time traffic updates. It'll also say the speed that you're going down the road. There's a whole lot of different settings and customization options to it as well. your hands-free Bluetooth telephone. If you don't have one paired, it'll automatically ask you, or go ahead and sync if it's already paired when you start the vehicle. So you could store quick dial numbers up there, phone book, voice dial, manually dial, store messages, etc. Also mute a call as well as do like three-way calls. Phone settings, basically controlling which phones you have connected to the Bluetooth, and if you have multiple ones, you can switch between them on this screen. As far as the settings, this is where it gets really interesting. You can customize just about every single aspect of this vehicle from this particular screen. Totally personalizable. So, like this for example, sounding the horn with remote start, all of the controls for doors and locks, the vehicle lighting. It gets really, really specific. But in a nutshell, those are all the basic features of the Maserati touch control system in the all-new Ghibli. Center-mounted blue-faced analog clock, surrounded in aluminum as well as leather. As we continue down the center console, like I said, you can also control your dual-zone electronic automatic climate control from right here. Temperature adjustment on either side, and it's also backlit. All your different system functions as well as one-touch automatic and fan speed. Pretty much the same like you saw earlier in a high-gloss black housing. Your SD card input, located down below, as well as your in-dash CD player. 2 cup holders, as well as a lighter and/or power outlet, and another little storage pocket as you go back here that also houses your USB, iPod, and auxiliary integration. The wood veneer features a fantastic high gloss finish that it can also be had in a couple different other wood options, including carbon fiber. Padded center console, splits open, with a good amount of space, and an extra power outlet. Now as far as the steering wheel, your cruise control is located to the left, while your radio controls are located on the back of the steering wheel. The right hand side goes between the different radio modes, the little center button, while the volume are the 2 outer portions. There's another button just like it over here, where the little button in the middle controls the going between your different presets, and then the outer buttons just scroll through the different stations. Your driver information controls, hands-free telephone and voice commands are located on the right hand side portion. Help.
To play music, include the music type, which can be song, artist, album, genre, playlist, audiobook, or podcast. Say things like, play the song Maple Leaf Rag, or play the artist Scott Joplin. You can interact.
Cancel. So it's a pretty intuitive system overall. Like you saw, it listed all the commands, so even if you don't remember it, you can just glance over it real quick and have total hands-free command. Now as far as the driver info controls, this goes up and down between the different menus, and this goes between the sub-menus. And what I mean by that, and what's nice about these TFT displays, you can pack a ton of information into them. Right now we're in vehicle info. If we click up, we can go to our digital speedometer. While in vehicle info, if we click that button to the side, it'll show our different diagnostics. Tire pressure, torque distribution, fuel economy, trip computers, audio, messages. Now to enter screen setup, you push in on the up and down toggle switch, and you can show what shows up in different portions of the screen. Same thing with vehicle settings. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Your vehicle fuel to the right, as well as your temperature to the left, date and time up top, and temperature to the top right. Your gear, as well as which driving mode you're in, also shows up in the bottom there. Not to mention the traditional blue-faced Maserati gauges with satin aluminum housing. Beautiful vehicle. There's also the option of an auto-tilt telescoping steering wheel and an easy exit seat that'll automatically slide back to give you a little bit more room for ingress and egress. You can turn both of those systems on or off in the customization screen that I showed you a second ago. Alrighty, let's go and check out the back seat. We'll hop on into the back seat in just a second. But just for a highlight, the back seat is also completely swathed in leather, just like you would find in the front. Soft touch door materials. lower storage, basically mimicking the same style that you'd find in the front. These seats are also quite comfortable. It's a little smaller than a comparable Quattroporte, but you'd expect it to have a more mid-sized car. If you need some more storage space, you can also grab this little strap here and fold it down, yielding a flat cargo space up to the front when this is put all the way down. As far as climbing into the back seat of the Ghibli, being that this is a smaller car than the Quattroporte, the back seat is also a little bit smaller. That's not to say that it's cramped or anything like that, but I'm 5'11", and with a comfortable seating position for myself up front, I probably have about an inch and a half of leg space and maybe about an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches of head space. So if you're around 6 feet or taller, I suggest checking out a Quattroporte just for comparison's sake. You can sit a third person in the middle row here. There are seat belts and everything, as well as a regular headrest. And in the padded center console, you do have some storage with a USB input as well as a 12-volt power outlet. There's also 2 cup holders. Your air register is located in the middle here, and I believe an optional feature, you can also get heated back seats. As far as comfort, it's actually really comfortable back here. The seats are kind of dipped out, sort of like a bucket seat. There's some good lateral side support here, as well as good lumbar. There's also some storage nets in the back of the seats. Bit of first-person perspective. Your illumination up top, grip handles, as well as coat hooks. Not to mention side curtain airbags for the rear. The Alcantara also comes into a padded rear parcel shelf with child car seat harnesses. So, let's go and check out the rest of the vehicle, shall we? Open up the easy access trunk of the Ghibli and you'll find a generous 17.7 cubic feet of cargo space. With a low lift height and a trunk that extends far and back, it's easy to gain access to and store a wide variety of luggage. It's also illuminated with cargo tie downs down below, storage net to the right, also with a power outlet. The passenger seat also features the same power adjustments, including the 4-way power lumbar that you find on the driver's seat. Glove box door handle, also made of aluminum, with a 2-tier glove box lined in felt, illuminated, as well as a little air conditioning vent right there that you can open up and keep items in there that you want chilled. Good amount of space. The all-new Ghibli isn't just the latest iteration of a famous nameplate, but the start of something much bigger for Maserati. With more variety and exciting models to come, it brings great new flavor to the market, not to mention continued excitement for the brand. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the in-depth look at the all-new 2014 Maserati Ghibli. Be sure to stay tuned next time, there's a lot more where that came from. Take care everybody.